Welcome to another edition of SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Now here's your host, Dwayne and Allie.
Hello, Dwayne Brummett here with Allie Alberigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Allie, good morning, sir. Oh, I can't hear you. Say that again.
Good morning to you as well. How is it going?
Good. I had you muted. I apologize.
That's okay. No problem. I like that you're able to do it and control it, because sometimes I forget and I'm on mute and I'm just talking away.
So let's explain to our listeners what we got up our sleeve today. This was your idea, which was a phenomenal idea.
Thank you. Well, you know what? I always look at this, like every school owner, we're in the trenches on a day-to-day basis. We're working our butts off to try to figure out the puzzles, the pieces of the puzzle. And then we never really take the time, always owners, consultants, coaches, they're the ones giving all the info. But I figured it would be really cool to pick the brains of your top guy and my top guy, who literally run the schools for us when we're not there, or while we're there, help us run the schools, and to get their insight on, what they do and how they think, and so that other school owners who maybe don't have employees or staff members, they could start thinking ahead and prepare and also have an inner idea of what they're thinking, their team is thinking.
Yeah, and I thought that was a phenomenal idea, this angle, from their perspective. So first, let's introduce your top guy and give us a little background about him, and we'll bring him on.
Okay, well, easy. I mean, he's been training with me since he's like 16 years old. He's now, been with me for like, I don't know, I can't even remember, like 17, 18 years. Started off as this young teenager, and it's kind of funny. He was in our leadership team, and when one of my other instructors decided to leave, he said, "You should pick Ryan and bring him up and make him your next top guy." And I said, "I don't know, like he's a little quirky, I don't know if he'd be interested." And lo and behold, he's like my top guy, and I trust him with the entire school, and I'm excited that the direction of where he took it. And listen, I'm gonna end up retiring one day, and my daughter has no interest. So Ryan is going to be the heir and the owner of the school. So this will be his life like it is mine. So but he's an amazing martial artist. He's not only trains with me, but also trains in BJJ, and just a great competitor, great instructor. The students love him. So without further ado, we say Renshi because that's his title, Junior Master Ryan Frank. So there he is. Did you get to hear all that, Ryan? Were you able to hear what I was saying or no?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, wow. I thought I didn't know you would hear that. Just forget it. Just yeah, he's definitely unbelievable. And he's home in the same chair as me, just about. I got him that chair because he's always like, "Hey, that's a nice chair." So I'm like, what's your address again? And I sent him the chair. So very cool. And you have your top guy who I've met, who's an incredible martial artist. So tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, Chris Bean, Master Bean, actually Senior Master Bean now, started with me when he was 11 years old. He's 32 now. It was funny because when the gentleman that I had, in his position prior, to Master Bean taking it over, we went out to, I was like coffee or whatever it was, but we went out and sat down and ate, and this is something we're going to talk about today. But I said, "So would you like to take Mr. Russo's position and be the head instructor?" And he goes, "Yeah," but he goes, "I just want to teach. Like, I don't want to run the school. I don't want to manage anything. I just want to teach." And I'm like, "Okay, that's all I need right now is a teacher anyways." So been a phenomenal asset to not only the studio, but it's, I don't know about you, but it's I don't want to call it a weird friendship, because it's not weird, but he was a kid and now he's an adult. And so I've gone through so many transitions I've always respected him. And, here's the other thing is we actually we share the same exact birthday, just not the birth year. So that's without further ado, we'll bring on Master Bean to our call. So sir, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Yes, sir. No problem. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so Ryan keeps looking in the camera because he's on his phone, and people don't realize that, but you keep looking in and we just see your eyeball. That's because you're doing this on your telephone. So So great. Hey guys, great to have you here. And I thought this idea was cool because maybe I could set the precedence again of what it is, because, you know, I've run 10 schools at one time at as many as 36 employees. I've been often called a tyrant and like a workaholic and, closed-minded and, because my way or the highway kind of mentality, people sometimes think that, but running a school isn't easy, as you guys know now, right? Like, it's not just teaching. There's so many different dynamics of personalities. Every kid is different. Every parent is different. So tell us a little bit of how you navigate those things as instructors.
Hey, Allie, before we get into that, I'm curious. Before we even start there, let's start at the beginning. Why did you wanna take on the role of head instructor in the school?
Yeah, that's a great. Okay, yeah, great question to start with.
Yeah, who wants to go first? Ryan?
Oh, sure. So the question is, why did I want to be a head instructor?
Yeah, why did you want to take on that role of being the head instructor? And then I don't know if your phone is turned because you're kind of muted, just so you know. I mean, we can hear you a little bit.
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit, yeah.
Is that too much?
No, that's fine.
That's good. We can hear you better.
Okay, good. So I like teaching martial arts. I like training martial arts. So kind of like a no-brainer for me. I like to see people progress and be good. I like to be people. That's really it. Pretty simple.
Yeah, it is a little muffled. So I don't know. Maybe if you could flip the phone so the microphone, if it's on the bottom, maybe it should be on the side.
I could put on my Bluetooth.
Yeah, why don't you try your Bluetooth, and we'll turn the question over to Master Bean. Master Bean, same question.
Yes, sir. So I think the reason I like being the head instructor here, the reason I wanted to be the head instructor is because I obviously grew up doing martial arts when I was 11 years old, and I recognized the impact that the martial arts had on my life, and I thought that would be an excellent opportunity for me to step into the position where I can kind of share those different life skills with my students. And if I'm the head instructor, that kind of puts me in the position where I can kind of alter or critique or modify the program in such ways that the students are able to pick up those skills, not by accident, but by on purpose. And so that's kind of the reason I wanted to be the head instructor.
That's awesome. I love that. So let me hear you, Ryan. Let's see if I can hear you better.
Is that mic picking that up or no?
Yeah, that's great now. Beautiful. Yeah. So give us your answer again. Like, why did you why does martial arts become your life? Like, why did you decide to make this your lifestyle? I know that you had at one point you were going to do criminal justice or become a police officer, and you decided to stay in the martial arts. So what made it your lifestyle?
Well, I like teaching. I like training. I like seeing students progress. I know that's kind of like a simple answer, but that's really the reason why. I like doing it.
Yeah, I think that's the same with us, right? Dwayne, you and I mean, we got into it because we love the martial art. I mean, I got into it for a little bit more of a deranged reason, because I just wanted people to have in my dojo so that I could beat them up and train with them and beat each other up and that kind of thing. And then eventually it became something that I just really had such an incredible passion for. So interesting, right?
Yeah, and I liked people from the beginning, so I wanted to see them, progress. I could care less about beating them up. No.
Great way to make me look bad. So real good question, guys. So I have another question. Have you ever gotten stress from relatives, family, husbands, wives, whatever, people, relatives that said, martial arts, what are you going to do for a living? Let's get a career, that kind of thing.
Well, when I was younger, I did. When I was like a teenager, they were like, how can you be a martial arts teacher for a living? You gotta get a real job. But
right.
I don't get that anymore. It'd be kind of weird at 35.
That's great, though.
When do you get a real job, Ryan? Like I don't get that anymore. I haven't gotten that in quite a while.
Good to hear.
He sees that I'm a good instructor. I'm pretty respected. I know what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Good job. How about you, Master Bean?
I don't think I had that quite as much. My parents have been great supporters of anything really that I wanted to do, and they saw that I had a passion for this rather early on, and they helped to support me, and I never had much feedback from anybody.
That's great. I love that. That's incredible, because I think nowadays, right, Dwayne, that there are you know, the martial arts, if people know school owners could run and have a very successful life and do something they love for the rest of their lives. And I mean, I sometimes wake up and I'm like, I can't believe how lucky I am, you know, like it's such a cool thing that we do, all of us, right? And teach and you know, people train with us and we help people's lives. It's just, we're lucky. Like, I don't know how, I mean, I don't know how lucky why I became so lucky, but it's just a great, great career.
Nope, totally agree. So I know you got a series of questions, so I don't want to step on your toes.
Well, I'm just coming off the top of my head too. So tell me, guys, like, what's your day to day? You know, like what, you know, you go in and, you know what you're going to do, what your focus is. I know that for Ryan, Wrenchy Ryan, you know, he's very focused on not only teaching the classes, but he's so good at maintaining the students' ranking, staying on top of their testing, making sure they're always up to speed on their material. I'm the opposite. I'm like, you know, let's just train. And, you know, eventually I'll give you a belt. Like, and he's more like yesterday, he's just like, we have a few people coming up for black belt. We got to set up the date. We got to do this. I'm like, just make them wait, you know? And he's like, no, but we have to maintain them and stay on them. So like, he's great at that. So like, what's some of the day-to-days that you guys do? And what are your functions that you think are the most important, et cetera, et cetera? So you want to go?
Oh, I guess I'll go first. I guess probably the most important thing for my job, besides actually doing my job and teaching and running the classes, connecting with people. So connecting with the student base, connecting with the parents and talking so that I get to know them, and I always make an effort to remember their names and make it so that they feel like I know them. And eventually through coming, I do know them, and we have a better connection, and I can talk to them on a level where they understand instead of me just like telling them what to do. They feel like they know me and they trust me. I can say, hey, listen, it's really better if you do it this way. What you're doing is awesome, but this is how you should be doing it. Like, they respect them from someone who like calls them by their name instead of someone who's like, hey, you.
Right.
This way, like, you know. Then, like you said, monitoring the progress, making mental notes, and having actual notes as well, and motivate and correct. More on the motivation side than the correct side. But telling people, oh, you're doing really well, you're doing this good, I like the way you kick, you know, like we do in instructor training, like never like not doing that, like never just kind of running and teaching the classes and then leaving. So it's always developing that personal touch, you know, and innovate, try to mix it up a little bit. If I see that I'm playing the same game over and over and over again, pick a different game for the next week and reevaluate.
Awesome.
If it wasn't going the way I want, and this is in my head, I want to do it this way, and it's not working, sometimes I have to reevaluate and do it different.
Fantastic. How about you, Mr. Bean? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think the part of my job that has the biggest impact on the students is couplefold. Well, number one is making developing the lesson plan and the curriculum that's based on. And so having a structured day-to-day lesson plan where it's down to the minute. We do, you know, hand techniques for 5 minutes, and then they have their form for 10 minutes and they get to do their 2 new moves or whatever it is, but it's having that structured basis for all the classes. And then along with that, making sure that each of the other team members that are on the staff here, making sure that they are in line with that and they know what's required of them and what to teach and when and how. But then another part is we have practice cards that we've developed for the students. So we send out a survey where they get to have a detailed kind of directed information on what to practice. So we often tell our students to go home and practice. Well, sometimes they don't quite know exactly what to practice. So I actually went through and developed a lesson practice cards that are in the form of a survey that they get delivered to them on a time basis, and it tells them, okay, practice your 2 new hand techniques. Okay, and then the next one a few weeks later, okay, practice your 2 new foot techniques and your form and so on. So they get that in a drip system through the whole time that they're that belt level. And so those are what I feel like has the most or the biggest impact on the students.
And by the way, Allie, those are through you know, the Spark, the Spark automations, you know, with the Spark surveys.
I like that. And by the way, I like that you say that you developed it and worked on building it out, because you see, that's just incredible. Like even with Ryan, Wrenchy Ryan here, you know, coming up with those concepts as owners or, you know, partners or whatever it is, the relationship, it's so important to have your input, right? So like if Dwayne is not there and I'm not there, you're the eyes and ears, right? And we do, if I'm not there, and sometimes just by accident, like it been 2 weeks ago, I hadn't been to the dojo in 2 weeks. It just so happened that on my days that I was supposed to be there, I was sick one day, and another day was my daughter's graduation. So it was 2 weeks that I hadn't actually been to the school, but Ryan and I kept in touch via meetings like this, either Zoom or we were doing FaceTime meetings and staying on top of it. So I love that you're coming up with concept and staying on top of that. That's incredible. Good job. That's awesome. So Dwayne, did you have a question or anything on it?
No, not on that. No, I appreciate the initiative that, he has taken. Of course, he presented the material and said, hey, I think we should try this. And I'm like, yep, but let's do it with, only a select group right now. And because I don't want him to spend a lot of time developing it for every single level if it isn't going to play out, right? If we can't get people to actually do it, because then we're just doing activities to make ourselves feel good, and so he did that.
Or just giving yourself extra work too, right?
Right. So, he did it with a select group. We got some feedback and then, gave the feedback and we're like, yeah, let's do it. So he since, went in and done that. You got that at every level up to black belt, if I'm correct, right, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Each level gets their own, and it's unique to each belt rank. And so there's not the same across the board, but each belt rank gets about 6 or 7 of those practice cards, again, at a dripped time.
That's awesome.
Doing those.
What's that?
How long have you been doing those cards?
About 6 months.
Do you feel like they was an improvement or?
I do. And the nice thing is I have, because we set up through Spark, I get them sent back to my personal email. And so I get to kind of have an outlook of who's done them and how frequently they've done them. And I can definitely for sure see an improved students that for those that have done it. Even the people that are not quite at the top of the list, those are the ones that sometimes need the extra practice. And the nice thing is those are the people that, from what I've seen so far, have taken the initiative to do those. And I can see great improvement from even that short time, the 6 months that they've participated in that.
That's awesome. What were you saying, Ryan?
Well, I was just curious, like, how long they've been doing it. And I wanted to know, like, do you feel like it helps or do you feel like that? But he answered the question. I was just curious.
Yeah. So I mean, I do you find like, I did for me, Dwayne and I, we do book clubs of the month. We had a book that was called Atomic Habits. I've been talking about it ever since. What a great book. I loved it. But
that was Master Bean who gave me that book. That's why I said to do it. Yeah.
Thank you. Because I got it in turn and now I read it and I loved it. The great thing about that book, and it's kind of weird because sometimes I'll read a book and I'll read it from an owner's point of view. Like I'm a businessman when I'm reading it. That book, for some reason, even though I could have read it as an owner, I read it more as an instructor. Like, because I'm finding that it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, I hate to say this, but with this whole break in COVID, kids' brains turned to mush at times. Like there were kids that had trained with me for 3 years in the school location that we're at that came back and literally forgot where the bathroom. I mean, 3 years of coming to classes and forgot where the bathroom was, like forgot how to bow. Like their brain was erased during COVID. So I started saying to myself, like getting them to bow in the right spot or following the protocols. Like, what am I going to do to make that happen? So I used the concept of the atomic habits of creating habits, consistent behavior. And I think that was something that is starting to show after a few months. And I did a video on belt tying and stuff like that. But it's hard to get them to buy in. Certain times to just get the parents to support the kids watching the video is difficult enough. So how did you get the cards going? Like, how did you get people? I know it was drip marketed into their inbox. And how did you get them to actually participate? For the ones that did you have to do anything special?
Yeah, so that was when we were on the floor. Of course, like you said, we started with just one belt level. And when we did that, of course, on the floor, I made sure to let them know ahead of time that was going to be coming, what to expect and how to progress through that. And as I did that, then I was able to see and hear the feedback from those people who did it. And then I got the other students that said, well, hey, how come I don't have that? Where's mine now? I said, well, we'll get you yours soon enough. And then now we have that with everybody. And then in classes, as we know as the instructors when those are coming out, so we can kind of pre-frame them to get them set up to know when they're coming, how to progress through those, and what kind of is expected of them.
Wow, I love it. You're gonna have to share those with me.
Yeah, so if you can think of, you've got your belt testing, and we do belt testing every 3 months. So it's really, and so the whole school is testing every 3 months. So it's really easy to, structure these things. So let's just say the first week in the curriculum cycle happens, but then the second week they get a practice card. That's their, I'm just throwing that out there as an example, but the second week is their first practice card. The third week is their second practice card. So, when we're on the floor, we can say, hey guys, this week, take a look at your, your parents' email, and you have your practice card to complete, So, and by the way, we know if you've done it or not. Like, because again, Master Bean said he gets them emailed to him, so he can see the ones that are doing them and not doing them.
So they fill it out saying, yes, I did it this week. I did the block, I did the punch, and then they hit send, and it comes back to you, and you know that it was done because they filled it out.
Right. Yes, sir.
Awesome.
And then, we even put like at one level, is this part of the practice card or is this a flash card? Oh, this is different. Never mind. I'm going into flashcards. Never mind. I guess we shouldn't call them flashcards. But anyways, yeah, that's a different concept. What's that?
When you say practice card, I think of flashcard, but I realize you just have to do like a little mini homework assignment, right?
Yeah, it is. It's basically a homework assignment. So for like practice card number 1, it says, okay, you're going to do your low block. That's for white belts, that's the first move. You're going to do your low block 5 times on the right side. Check this box. 5 times on the left side. Check this box. And then in technique. Okay, then hit submit, and then that one's done. And so it doesn't take them very long. I don't want to take a bunch of their time. I don't want them, to feel like they're overwhelmed, where they have to practice for a huge number of hours. Just that little bit of time spent at home is greatly beneficial to us on the floor.
Well, and we're trying to create a habit. Again, going back to the atomic habits, we're trying to create this habit of practice at home, but it doesn't have to be for hours.
Right. I love that. That's a great idea, though. And it ties that, and that's the biggest dilemma with martial arts schools, is that the parents are afraid to help because they think they might do more damage than good. So they stay out of it. Like if it was baseball, they'll throw a baseball with their kid, take them to a game, sports or whatever, watch it on TV, blah, blah, blah. But the martial arts, they're kind of like, it's not my thing, so I don't want to mess things up. So this takes that out of the equation and helps them. I love it. It's pretty awesome. I think that's a great idea. I think we should consider that, Reggie Ryan.
Yeah. Now here, let me just do this real quick.
Back to their parents.
Yes.
Like Sean Joyner, he definitely practiced with his dad. The kid's a white belt, and he does a roundhouse kick higher than his own head in perfect form.
Yeah, because he's practicing at home.
He practices with his dad.
Good.
Here,
Good.
Yeah, take a look at this. I'm going to throw this in the screen. And let's see. I'll make it the full. So, oops. Sorry, Master Bean.
Hi.
All right. So this is for green belts with a white stripe. So they're going to practice their double arm low block on the right side 10 times. The name automatically gets pre-filled because we send it through email,
Right.
But, let me just put mine in there real quick. So they practice it 10 times. They practice it, 10 times, and they go to the next one. Now they're going to do their double arm middle block 10 times next. Then their double arm high block 10 times next, and then it's submitted. Now it just went to Master Bean's inbox.
Love it.
And so it's super simple, but it's not, and that's just week 1. So they learn their hand techniques in week 1, and so they that's what he's having them do, is then practice those hand techniques, because that he has developed the cards in relationship to the delivery process also of the information, based upon the curriculum.
That's excellent. I like it. And listen, anything that we could do to number 1, make our students better, of course, the most important, but number 2 is to get them even more involved. And then that home practice is such a big part of that. Like I lived the martial arts when I was a young up and coming. If I wasn't at the dojo, I was in my backyard videotaping my forms and whatever, looking back on it to see how I did. I mean, that's all I care. And then I was watching martial art movies on my days off. Like that's all I thought about. That, girls, and music. Those were the 3 things that I had in my life. Right. But you know what? I think that sometimes parents, the kids are so busy, right, with so many things. This is great. It's not a lot, but they do it at home, and they did it, and now they're like, yeah, I did my thing, and they're still practicing. So hats off. That's a great process. I like it.
So not only was there the flashcards, but I don't know if it was your or the
Practice cards.
practice cards, but I think it was your idea as well to do the flashcards.
Yes, sir.
So explain flashcards because those are different.
Yeah, so for the flashcards, I had Professor Brummett record the audio, but it shows, it's just an audio, but it's a video of, I guess, an audio and video. Anyways, it shows the hand technique or foot technique in Korean, and he says it in Korean. And he gives a small window of opportunity for him to, or for the student rather, to say what the English is. And then Professor Brummett would say the English. And then the next hand technique would flash up in the Korean. He says it in Korean. He says it in Korean, gives them an opportunity to say it in English, and then he tells them what the English is. And so that's just to help to reinforce the Korean and English. We do a Korean martial arts. So just to help them to refresh and rehearse on what those that terminology information is for them.
That's awesome. I had one time paid, and it's no longer even available to me because it was done in Flash, and Flash is almost literally, obsolete. But I had it put together in a game form where we had our kata, and they were on tiles, and they would slide the tile, the first part of the move here, then they had to connect the next part until they got all the tiles in order. And if they didn't do it in order, it would fall out, and they'd have to figure it out. And then at the end, they could play the kata and watch it, but they had to know the sequence for it to play. And that was a fun thing. I wish we had something like that. I wish I could get my Flash to play in a different software. But it was, it was a pretty cool way for it to turn it almost into a video game for them to be able to actually learn, because kids learn that way. They're on their computers or on their phones and so on. That's a very cool thing.
So let me ask you guys this: as the head guy at the the head top instructor at the studios, what is it that you find, like in the beginning when you first started, the biggest challenge, and now that you've been in that role for quite a while, the biggest challenge?
Who do you want to go first?
Biggest challenge in the beginning and the biggest challenge now.
Yeah, so the biggest challenge when you first started as the head instructor, and then what's your biggest challenge now?
So I'll go. So for the beginning, I would say the biggest challenge is trying to communicate the information that I have in my head in such a way that the students can pick it up. And so I have I can do the move, but I don't necessarily or didn't necessarily have a very well thought out way to formulate the sentences and structure it in such a way they could pick it up and learn it very easily. And that I think that's just something that comes with time. You mess up enough times and you figure out what works, and you keep doing what works. Biggest challenge now is, that's a tough one. Well, I would say perhaps trying to keep my staff on the same page as where I am. So meaning I have in my head, of course I see what the lesson plan is. I can interpret that one way, but I need to make sure that everybody that's in the class is going to interpret it the same way, so that we can be in sync with each other. And what that comes down to is just making sure that I have 2 minutes or 35 seconds or something just at the beginning of class and say, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this, and it's going to be like this, and enough that they can understand that, and we're all on the same page for the class. And so that's what I would say is the biggest challenge from the beginning. And
we lost him.
Yeah. So Ryan, while we have you, why don't you let us know while we get him back in? What are some of your struggles, like in the beginning and then now?
Well, in the beginning of teaching, the hardest thing was controlling the class, not really knowing what I was doing, and trying to teach. Everyone's just chaos, and people are being bad. Like that was the hardest thing at first.
So before you
I really didn't know as much back then when I first started as I do now. I feel like I don't know anything.
So tell me, let's dig in a little deeper on that and slide a little to your right, because now that we have 3 people in the screen, that's perfect right there. So so back then, what do you think now? What would love to go back and tell young Ryan what you did wrong, or what you learned how to do better, and you do this with our instructors in training, right? You help them.
Well, I didn't know how to read the room. Like if a kid was being really crazy, I didn't really know how to rein him in. Now I know how to do that.
Right.
Like seeing body language, seeing if the class is low energy or high energy in the beginning, and basing how I start the class on the energy level of the class. If it's low energy, bring the energy up. If they're crazy energy, I try to bring the energy down. I guess that would be the thing I would try to teach
Okay, cool. And then how about now? What's your biggest thing? And then you could even mention, negative people if you'd like, like that kind of.
The biggest struggle now is just connecting with parents because they were in their cars for so long for COVID. Like some parents, I don't even know what they look like. They would come into the studio for 4 months, and I still never met the parent. Like I saw Madison Hohen's mom for the first time yesterday. She's been coming for 4 months, and I'm like, oh, you're her mom. Like I literally never met the parent.
Yeah, we still don't have our lobbies open to the public yet, so we're not allowed to have them in. And honestly, though, I like though that they're watching on Zoom because it does, like when they were in our lobby, they just chatted with each other, right? They were back, and now that they're in their car isolated and they're watching on the screen, they're paying a little bit more attention to what we do. And I hear more parents saying, wow, I really like that you worked on this. Or we had one dad about 2 weeks ago fall asleep in the car and his camera was on. And he was snoring so loud. I'm like, sir, wake up. And he's and we had to mute him and shut his camera off. But it was the funniest thing. But yeah, so, and now what do you think now is a struggle like as far as, how about negative people? And we don't have much of them anymore, if any. Like everyone is so positive.
I'm kind of, this is one of the things I want to talk about. Like, I feel like this year, since we reopened up, we've been a lot less forgiving of negative people, or can I call them dojo cancers? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Like if you have someone who's a gym cancer or a dojo cancer, instead of them just train and ruin the class over and over and over again for years and years and years, we kind of take it like, we've done what we can. You got to go someplace else. Like I know it's not like nice. But we had that one boy who came for 6 months and didn't participate in a single class. And we had to be like, listen, it's not working out.
Yeah, and by the way,
people just do it forever, and they would be coming forever. I feel like we've been a little more strict with that.
And by the way, if it were up to me, I'd still be forgiving him. So I appreciate that you're like, come on now, let's get him out. And we have an adult that way now. And Richie Ryan's like, no. And the guy just decided on his own to take a break. And normally I'd be like, no, you're in a membership. I'm like, okay, I'll freeze your membership. Maybe you want to just reevaluate because it's just more work than anything else. So
if they're there for 5 years and they're like, I guess, annoying,
right,
make someone quit every year just by being annoying or going too hard and doing what they're not supposed to. So you think about over 5 years, you could lose 5 students just to keep one person who you want to help.
Yeah,
I like wanting to help people. I like doing that, but at a certain point, you have to say, okay, this person's toxic.
Yeah.
Why? Like, it's probably 1 out of every 100 people, but.
Yeah, didn't you recently at your BJJ school that you go to too? Didn't they? A parent was really like yelling at the kid, and they were like, "You're out of here. We're kicking you out of the dojo."
The parent came in and started cursing during the kids' class, and Coach Ian had to tell him to get out and not come back.
Right, because it's just not the right environment for the school.
Yeah, so Alex is a lot. He used to let people do that. Now Alex just kicks people out.
I know.
Someone in the face or has like a tantrum, it's like bye forever. Like he's just done with it.
Well, I guess you can equate it to like someone on the ride in a Disney resort going through It's a Small World and trying to scare people to death. It'd be like you're out of the park, right? Like this is the negative stuff that sometimes we tolerate as school owners because our goal is to teach and help and guide. And maybe they just don't get it. Maybe they need a little time. But sometimes that could cause more damage than anything. And we've had that numerous times, with kids.
It's rare, but it builds up over time.
Right, exactly. How about you, Master Bean? What are some of the things that you find?
So can you?
The question was like, what did you find in the beginning that was difficult, and now what do you find sometimes are struggles within that maybe changed now as they used to be?
Yeah. So the struggle that I say would be in the beginning was trying to figure out how to communicate to the students in such a way they can learn the information. So I had, my own ways that I used to remember it, or, I could physically do it, but telling them or thinking about how to use my words to help them learn those moves was, I would say, a challenge early on. And that just comes with time figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And you drop the things that don't work and you just do the things that do work.
Right.
And then now the things that I would say that's most challenging is making sure that if I'm teaching a class, that myself and the staff that I have with me are all on the same page. I mean, we can read the lesson plan and I might interpret it one way and they might interpret it another way, but I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So maybe I take a minute or so right before class and just, kind of reiterate what's on the page so that we are all in sync as we move forward to teach that class.
Awesome.
And isn't that the I think that's the crux of all of this, whether it was, when you guys first started teaching or even now. What I'm hearing is you guys are talking about communication. In any way, shape, or form, it's communication. And the older that I get, not that I'm that old yet, because Allie's got me beat, but
by quite some time.
I think the most difficult thing is communication. I really do. One, being able to articulate what needs to be said is one thing, but being able to hear what is actually being said by the other person, not just my perception of what's being said, is a whole nother ball of wax. And then meeting in the middle somewhere, with that is I think what we're talking about here is the whole communication thing. So, and I don't know, when I was your guys' age, I just thought, my gosh, when I said the color blue, everybody knew what color I meant when I said blue. And boy, as time went on, I found out that I always knew that there was different shades of blue, but I was never really communicating those different shades.
Well, remember in my book, I talked about the different shades of blue. One might be light blue, one might be navy blue. And, even like people get together and like, oh, we have so much in common. Even with that girl, we love blue. And like, she might be light blue and I might be dark blue. And I'm closer to black and she's closer to white. At times, we're really not on the same page. And that's important through this. And I want to say education of our clients, right? Because we're constantly educating parents. Like for me, why is tradition important? I just had a big debate on one of the Century pages the other day about tradition. And a lot of schools are tending to they don't care anymore. They don't want, they're like, one of them said to me, well, people don't live in Japan, Allie. I'm like, oh, yeah, but I still teach as if they did, because that's what I hold dear to my heart. It's not right for every school, but in my school, I want them to understand the traditions and the protocol and the language and the history and the culture. But if I want parents to buy into that, I have to actually educate them on why it's important, because if they find it to be valueless, then I'm just talking for nothing, right? And they're not interested. So we have to communicate that. And by the way, Spark is beautiful for that. Text messaging, emailing, automation campaigns. It's incredible.
Well, it's definitely lifted our ability to be able to communicate to our clients in a much different way, much more efficiently. But it still doesn't take away the human interaction that has to happen.
Right. Yeah, but I'll talk to people via text message and I'll meet them for the first time. I'm like, oh, I'm that guy who was on the other side of the text. We already know each other. Now we just got to meet each other face to face. But we've had this ongoing rapport, joking back and forth. And that's things that I was never able to do years ago. So that's true.
So let me ask you guys both this question. What is your favorite group, like student group, to teach? And I don't know how you guys break down. It could be age, it could be belt level, it could be, definitely maybe explain that so the listeners know what you're talking about. But your favorite group to teach, Renchi, Ryan?
Well, my favorite group to teach, and I'll tell you the group I put the most time in would be the black belts, the teenage black belts, the adult black belts.
Okay. And how come? Why?
Well, they've been with me the longest. I have the best or the deepest connection with them, as you could say. And they listen to me most of the time. I feel like a lot of them were on the same page and they feel like I want them to be better.
Right. So they have a deeper connection to what your lessons are and what you want to teach and so on.
We might argue sometimes, we might have disagreements, but we all have the same goal.
Yeah. How about you, Mr. Bean?
Yeah, that's kind of a tough one for me because I legitimately love every class that I teach. I guess if I had to pick one over the others, we do a program on Fridays with special needs individuals of various different ages. And I think if I had to pick my favorite, it would be those guys, just because they're such a fun group. They're carefree. The information that they do is kind of lighthearted, and the class is lighthearted. It makes it fun. And if I had to pick, that would be the one.
Awesome. That's great, though. I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah. So I have one other. Well, I have a few others, but we're pretty much only at like 18 minutes left.
Yep.
So for you guys as chief instructors and head instructors in the school, what would you like to see if you were able to, or if you are doing it now? What direction? How would you like to see things shift? What would you like to see more of, less of? As far as the school's growth and so on and so forth. Why don't we have you go first, Master Bean?
Yeah. So school's growth. I mean, obviously, it would be great we're in, kind of in the works of doing opening another school, and so it'd be great to have another location, have our information that we get to choose and pick and teach from, just to share with more people in a wider base.
That's awesome. Cool. Are you going to be part of that? Helping? Are you running the other school too, or helping run it? Or
I get to continue to run the school that I'm at now. We have another instructor that's going to be trucking up to do the other school, but we'll still be a part of it because he'll be teaching my lesson plans and the curriculum.
Yeah. So you'll be setting up at the training, and they'll be doing it there, and you'll be monitoring it, maintaining it, staff training, and so on. That's pretty exciting, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How about you, Wrenchy Ryan? What would you like to see? I know if it was up to you, you'd be grappling 24/7. Yeah, just grappling because you love grappling so much. But what would you like to see for the students? What would you like to see us improve on? I know that we just talked about black belt testing and maintaining those black belts and up and coming black belts. What are some of your thoughts?
Well, besides like teaching, I'd like to have the staff to understand what I want them to do better. I know that's teaching them. I feel like a lot of the staff, sometimes they don't really know what I want them to do.
Yeah.
Like Dylan's very good. Like 70% of the time I could trust Dylan, but sometimes I can't. Sometimes if there's a girl he likes in class, I know I have to be in that room.
Right.
I can't be like, oh, Dylan, teach the class.
By the way, Dylan is only 14, by the way, and he's like a 6 foot, almost 6 foot tall. He's like 5'10", and he's a powerhouse. Great kid. Been training with me since he's 3, but he's still a kid, right? He's 14, right? But
so like Dylan, like Tristan and Madison, and just making sure, like if I say, okay, do this, they can do it, not be like, I forgot.
Yeah. Well, if I could give you some constructive criticism online, then sometimes Wrenchy Ryan is very friendly. I'm different. Like his personality is very bubbly and joking, and I'm more the serious, straight-laced. I throw out a joke, sometimes sarcasm that people miss, but I'm like a different type of teacher. So he's very close with the younger instructors. They believe that they're his friend, and I think sometimes that's a hard area to navigate, friendship and instructor, and they sometimes cross I'll say, what did you just say to him? Like, are you talking to Wrenchy Ryan like that? Like, he's not your buddy. You don't touch him and talk. Like, I'm a little harder on people when that happens, but he's so much more friendlier. So I think that's my one thing that I could throw out to you is that you have, as a teacher, it's unfortunate. It's like this weird relationship. You're not their friend, but you're friendly. You're more of a mentor, father-like figure versus a friend, because once you hit that friend zone, you're in trouble, because people will do things, say things, act differently, and so on. So you have to be very careful with that. And that's part of the instructor level training as becoming a
boundaries.
Yeah, you got to make sure that they understand them, though, right? Like sometimes Dylan doesn't understand them.
Yeah, well, he's gotten better with the boundaries. Like I talk to him, not just Dylan. Like I just tell him, like, all right, don't say that in class. Like I don't care if you're friends with whoever, just don't say it.
Yeah.
Like if I ask you to do something, I'm not joking. I'm not like saying, okay, I want you to do this because I'm making a joke. I'm asking you because I really need you to do this, like right now.
Yeah.
Not trying to joke around and talk about it and kind of do it.
Yeah.
No one wants. Like your friend might appreciate your joking around. The 20 other people in the class don't give a crap.
Right. Exactly. What were you gonna say, Twain? You had something to say on that.
Yeah, all I was gonna say was, that's where, like, for me, I had to, like, I look at. And correct me if I'm wrong, Master Bean. I mean, I know I'm not your father, but I was an adult male figure in your life that you looked up to, especially when you were a teenager. And now we've developed a friendship, but that part I don't think has ever left. Am I wrong in that?
No, I would agree. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I also think that we've developed that over time. It's funny because I can remember being on the phone, and this was on a weekend or whatever, and we were on speakerphone, and my wife would hear us, and she's like, "Why do you keep saying yes sir to each other? Like you're not even in the studio." But that's where we keep our level, and part of that is because I think, one, I want to do that. I respect you. I want to say yes sir to you. I mean, but I feel like you still want to respect me in that aspect as well. So it's a mutual respect. Am I describing that correctly?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And so, that's where him and I have never crossed that line.
Right.
Where it's been at that level, and that's tough. I mean, I get that, where you want to be their friend or friendly, but you can't be their friend, and it's really actually even funnier than that, because one of your I don't want to say best friends, but maybe one of your really, really good friends is my age.
Right. Yes, sir.
Right.
Right. Yes, sir.
And you guys have a friendship. It's not like he's, an adult male in your life, even though, I mean, he technically is.
Right.
Yeah. So that is just, in and of itself is a neat thing. So it's you got to just be, and I told Master Bean this a while ago, because like when he was coming up, I would do things with him, and I would do things with the other instructors that were at his level. And then it got to a position where now these are kids that are even younger, because I'm, I'm 40, I'll be 48 this year. I'm like, I need you to work with them. I need you to spend time with them. I need you to have the pizza parties with them,
Right.
and he filled that role. He stepped right in that. But
Yeah.
He's kind of like you, Allie, where, every once in a while he'll throw out a funny, like he's pretty straight,
Right.
Renchi, you're probably like me, where, we're kind of fun loving, and you know what I mean? Not that you're not, Master Bean, but you know what I mean?
Well, that's funny, because even guys during our podcast, sometimes we have a guest on and Dwayne will throw out a joke, and I'm like, he's only kidding. You do know that, right? Like the guest will be like, yeah, I got it. Like I almost feel like I have to explain it. But what's interesting though with Ryan too, like he could come out in the middle of the class has started, and he's knocking people down and playing crazy music, and then he's like, you're not listening, and I'm like, because you set the tone of chaos right beforehand. So I'm more like, snap to attention, bow, stand, like, and I started off the way I want to continue it. So he's got an energy that I don't have, and I have a good friend. He's 72 years old, been running a school for 45 years. He goes like this to me, and he holds his hands up, and for the listeners who are not watching, he'll have his hands close together. He says, years ago, and then he pulls them far apart, and now my hands just came out of the camera angle. He goes, this is what my tolerance level was back then. He says, now it's like an inch and a half away from each other. So I don't tolerate anything. They listen, they yes sir me. If they don't listen, I kick them out. Like he's got less tolerance. And as we grow older, I think for us, Dwayne, you and I, our tolerance level gets a little bit lower, and that's why the younger generation, and has Ryan and Master Bean have to step in, because they're tolerated.
Master Bean has less tolerance than me, so it's really good. It's really good, because often is the time that I would say he's 100% right, where I should have got rid of that person, or I should have said, yeah, I don't think it's the right fit.
Right. And Ryan does that with me as well. And I sometimes say, come on, B, we'll work it. And he's like, I know it's not good. So we have one person that we're working on that with right now.
So let me ask this, gentlemen. So you right now you have, and then obviously the people that are going to listen to this as not live, as the recording, you have school owners that are listening to you about your position. Maybe they already have a head instructor, or maybe they're looking for a head instructor. I guess my question to you is, from your perspective, because in as much as we're navigating trying to run a school, you're also trying to navigate us. And there's a delicate, balance there. And I'm just going to give a compliment to Master Bean. I think he does that very well, because he will approach me on things with the utmost respect, but then ask the question, why are we doing this? Or should we maybe do this or whatever? So Master Bean, I'm going to have you start, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. How do you navigate being the head instructor, yet not the owner, but approaching the owner with, you know, problems or solutions and ideas, those type of things. And obviously there, you know, we always talk about it's only a problem if you don't have a solution, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that would be the first thing is if you have an issue or a problem that you realize, figure out, it may not be the best solution. Oftentimes it isn't, but have some sort of solution that you can bring up along with that. So, you know, whatever the issue is, if you have a solution or idea of what that might be, or a way to make that position or whatever it is better or smoother for the students, would be the best way to approach that. But also always have the student's best interest at heart. And so don't come up with issues or problems because you yourself, the head instructor, don't like it or it's not working for you. Come at it from the student's best interest. And so whatever the issue might be, think about how how that's going to affect or impact the students and what that is going to be better, how to make that system or process better for them. And like you said, just be very respectful as you do that. I always like to think that if I mess up, then I like my job. I like to keep my job, so I want to do things in the most respectful way that I can, so I can keep that up. But also, I want to keep that respect level that I have for Mr. Brummett. And I think by bringing up those issues helps to keep that respect, because sometimes if you just always go with the flow and you're just a yes man, that respect level is different. And so by sometimes challenging the owner helps to raise that level of respect, as long as you do it in the correct way.
I like that. That's great. How about you, Ryan? Ryan, what do you think?
Like, I agree everything with Master Bean. I agree 100% what he said. And for me, like, we've been working together pretty much my entire adult life. So most of the time I have a pretty big handle on, I have an idea what you're going to say, what you want to do, but not all the time. Sometimes I'm not sure. And if I'm not sure, I always ask you.
Right.
I try to think about stuff before I ask you and make sure it's not coming from a place that's like irrational, emotional.
Right.
It's hard to, sometimes you want to say something, something that bothers you, then you think about it for a little bit. You're like, okay, doesn't really bother me. It's kind of,
yeah,
okay, but it's not the best thing that I want. So maybe we talk and we work it out.
Yeah.
We've always kind of done that, even if we're not coming from the same place. We've always kind of done good with communication and working together.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I never try to be like disrespectful. Like, I don't talk to you like I would talk to my friends.
Yeah.
I just have to make sure that everything's coming from the right place. It's coming from wanting the dojo to be better, wanting everything to be good.
Yeah.
It's an emotional kind of ego thing.
I like it. That's awesome.
Makes sense.
Totally makes sense. I remember when I would travel to Japan. I've been there 17 times with my teacher, and we became quite close, and then we would travel privately to places like Vegas and just have some R&R. And I remember spending a weekend with him in Vegas and then going to Colorado to teach. And I remember we were kind of, our conversations were a little bit looser in Vegas than they were in a traditional setting. And I remember being at a testing table and kind of under my breath, but loud enough for maybe a few people to hear, I said something. And the minute I said it, I knew it was not the right thing to say. I literally my body felt as if someone just poured hot water over my head. I could feel it trickling from my head down, blood was rushing. And he just turned to me in his Japanese accent and he said, not the right time, and I was like, oh crap, I can't believe I made that mistake. One time I went off the right, and made that mistake, and never again. But I realized it as it was happening. But it's a fine line of, respect, mentorship, and that relationship between you two, Dwayne and Master Bean. Like, you guys, I could tell there's that fatherly, son kind of relationship. I hope I have the same kind of feeling, mentorship with Ryan as well, and being a positive force in his life, so that, and both of you, I'm sure, could come to either one of us with any issues, problems, questions, whatever, life struggles, and we'll be there for you and help you. So I think that's cool that you guys feel that way. It's pretty an honorable thing for us, I think.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I guess, I don't want to disappoint Master Bean. Like, that, I don't. Like, that's where I'm at is and he holds me accountable to some things.
Right.
which was good. Like, hey, you texted me, hey, so when are we do we have something in process to talk to these COVID people that have been on hold? Right? Yeah. Like, I don't want to disappoint them. Like, and I do, there's times that I do, but not in a way that he wants to throw me out with the bathwater, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So he gives me grace. I don't know that I feel like I have to give him grace, because I don't feel like he oversteps on anything, but yeah, it's great. Let me ask you guys this. So what is it from your perspective that you would like, owners that have had instructors at their studio, what do you feel like they need to know as an owner to make sure that their head instructor has the parameters and the wherewithal, the ability to do their job effectively?
Well, it comes down to the training. Did you train them how to be a head instructor? If not, then no. Like, you have to train them what you want them to do. You want to train them how you want them to communicate. You have to teach them how you want them to speak to people. If it's not natural, I know for me, speaking to people wasn't natural when I first started, when I was 17 years old, reclusive teenager. So you really have to teach them. You also have to be on top of that. Like Shion does a really good job of, when I get a little too off in my head and I start doing something that's a little far attached, he brings it back in. So realigning so the goals are the same. Because don't just leave people to their own devices for too long.
Good answer.
So I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction. I would say give them parameters to work in, and then let them do it. Realize that there are different people than you are. They're not going to teach the exact same way you are, but let that happen. Don't, when you're there, don't, you're there, you see them, oh, they're not teaching that the way I would teach it. Don't step on the floor and especially in front of the students, because that really does something for the students. But don't step onto the floor and take over the class because you think they're doing it wrong or differently than you are. Understand that different is just different. It's not always wrong. But if you give them the parameters to work in, and I'm not saying don't have quality checks, so meaning inspect what you expect. So you expect them to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C in the class, and they get that done, but they do it a little bit different fashion than you would. Okay, great. Understand they have their own personality and they're going to do stuff different than you. Now, of course, if they're not doing the things, or they're not, they're not getting the things done that you need them to get done, then you have to step in and kind of correct them. But I would say otherwise, not necessarily leave them to their own devices, but give them parameters to work in and let them have it, and then see how they go and what they can develop. Because what I found is, if you give them strategic, or I correct them, but I would say, well, okay, if you give them steps every single way, or you are holding their hand every step of the way, they're not going to have the opportunity to come up with creative solutions on their own. And that, I think, is something great that us as the teachers, the head instructors, get to have and use and develop over time.
Yeah, once you've established that, but before that, if you're thinking about hiring a new head instructor, you have to be on that.
Right, and I would agree with that. But if you have somebody in mind that's going to be the head instructor, I would imagine that you've spent time with them for years, hopefully, to understand how they work and know what their capabilities are, what their capabilities could be. And
I guess it depends on the system that you have in place for developing your instructors. So what Master Bean is talking about is, he was an instructor, gosh, probably 4 or 5 years before you actually stepped into the role of being the head instructor. So by that time, you primarily knew how to teach and that type of stuff. So that's kind of where you're coming from. And I don't know, Renchi Ryan, where you're coming from, but with regards to, I don't know how many years you taught before he had you as a head instructor.
Like, the question was, what would you advise an instructor who's hiring a new head instructor to do? Like, I'm not a new head instructor. I've been a head instructor for, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah, but how long before you were an instructor did you take to become a head instructor? Like, how long did you teach before you became one of the head instructors, if not the head instructor?
Probably about 5 years or so.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. Yeah, so it took a while, and then you developed that level. I mean, I think for me, I think it's always, and Master Bean, I love what you said too. Like, you know, we do want people to be kind of clone-ish of who we are, how we act, what we think, and what we do. So it's not like you're running two separate dojos, but at the same time, using the strengths of people's individual personalities, who they are, how they act. Like Ryan he's a totally different teacher than I am. Like I said, he's much more of a jokester. I'm much more serious. Maybe, you know, again, they're on the right side of the screen. Ryan and Sensei Dwayne, Asabanam is the same. They're jokesters and so on. You and I are probably more straight-laced than anything else. So, but we find our niche, and then we want to, you know, of course, celebrate the qualities of those teachers. So I agree with that. I think that that's super important.
So I know we got to, you know, quickly end here, but I'm just curious, Master Bean, with regards to those parameters. Give me a grade on how well I did in the beginning of micromanaging you, and then now.
In the beginning, I'd have to give you like a D- or so. Not so great. There's lots of times where I was teaching something, and of course I teach not drastically different, but I teach differently than he does. Lots of different verbiage and strategy, I guess, behind how I'm teaching it than he has. But there was lots of times where I would teach it differently, and he would step in and take over the class. And as of late, I would say, I mean, I don't know, maybe A+, but definitely in the A's for sure now. I don't think I can remember time in recent months or years, maybe even, that there's been a time that you've stepped on the floor and you know, taken over or even asked, you know, how come you're doing it this way? Oftentimes I see you at the door. Even last night, I seen you at the door, and I don't know if we were doing the exercise or something. You just kind of nodded your head like, okay, yeah, I like that. So yeah, much improved from early on.
So, and I wanted you to say that, and I'm glad you were honest, because I want school owners to know that that is a learning curve for themselves too, that, you know, we as the owners aren't perfect, and so we are going to mess up. And I think, you know, from time to time I apologized and said, oh, I'm sorry I did that or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
How about you, Ryan? What do I grade? And be careful. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
That phone call, I didn't catch that.
I said, what are the grades like?
Hello?
Can you hear us? Are you muted?
No, he's not muted.
I can't hear you right now.
Oh, we might have lost you. You got to reconnect.
Shoot.
He didn't get to answer the question, but we're out of time anyway, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. But look, gentlemen, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be on this. And I think that this is going to be quite beneficial for head instructors to listen to, but then also school owners, because I think it's quite educational for them. Yeah, I loved it. Thank you guys for being here. I learned a lot too, listening to you both. So that was pretty awesome. So I think we have an outro to play. We're going to just bump it. We'll all sign out of the room and get lost, and we'll talk to you guys soon, and hopefully we'll have you back. And thanks, Master Bean, for being so honest and open, and I appreciate it. And
Yes,
Dwayne, we'll talk soon, and I can't wait to see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Martial Arts School Owner Talk Podcast. This would not be possible if it weren't for the support of our amazing sponsors. Please check out EliteInsights.com for all your website needs. LeadHunterMedia.com, your online digital marketer and content provider. Academy Kings BJJ Growth Consulting and Management at GrowMyAcademy.com. SparkMembership.com, the best darn software for school owner manager on the planet. GetKarateStudents.com, a martial arts growth consulting company for all your school systems. We will see you next